Alright, in this section here we're going to be talking about literal equations, and you're probably wondering, what in the world is a literal equation? Well, you may know what an equation is, but let me just write up what a literal equation, give an example. Let's say that L could stand for anything, it doesn't stand for literal, but let's say that L is equal to A times F. So we can say that these are variables, alright, in our equation. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, we're going to solve let's solve for A. Okay, so this is a good portion of algebra, and that is solving for a variable. Alright, so we want to get A to one side of the equation here, the equal sign. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply multiply both sides by 1 over F. F times 1 over F is just 1. So remember, if F were the number 5 and you multiplied it by 1 over 5, you would just get 1. So we end up with A is equal to L over F. Right? And of course we can actually rewrite this as A is equal to L over F, putting A over on the left hand side. Okay, let's look at some others. Alright, let's say that L this time is equal to 8D, or 8 times D, plus 5 times G. And in this particular one, we want to solve for, let's solve for D. I just shorthanded this over here. So we're gonna solve for D here. So we want to get D to one side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to take care of this guy first. And that is, I'm going to subtract 5G both sides. Alright. So let me rewrite this. And actually, I'm going to put the 5G over here. So minus 5G is equal to 8D plus, right, our 5G, and we subtracted 5G. And so by subtracting, alright, that's going to get this guy to cancel out and become 0. Now all we're left with now is just the 8D is equal to L minus 5G. In order to get rid of this 8, I'm going to multiply it by its reciprocal, or 1 over 8 times D, multiplying this side over here by 1 over 8, L minus 5G. So hopefully I haven't lost anybody here. Okay, 1/8 times 8 is 1. And so we'd end up being left with just a D here. And so D ends up equaling to 1/8 over 1 over 8 times L minus 5G, and you can leave it just like it is right here. Alright, actually I'm going to rewrite it right over here. So 1 over 8 times L minus 5G. And yes, you can distribute this 1/8 across, but I'm just going to leave it just like it is. Lay down. Alright, let's look at another one here. So we've got G, and in parentheses we're going to have a C minus a small g, and that's going to be equal to I minus m. And in this case, we're going to solve for big G. So we want to get big G by itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the C minus G and bring it down diagonally over here. But I guess we'll go through the steps. Once you do this a bunch of times, there's a shorter way of seeing this. I minus M. And I'm going to put this in parentheses. Multiply it by 1 over C minus G. Now we have a C minus G. This is the reciprocal here, actually. So these guys are going to cancel out, right? And then we're just going to be left with a G is equal to, now I'm going to take this I minus M up into the numerator. So I minus M times 1 is just I minus M, right? So we have I minus M, and it's all over C minus G. So there you go. That's how you solve for G. All right, let's look at another one here. So once again, I'm going to just call it G is equal to D plus, and in parentheses, I'm going to write D plus E then plus D plus I, and I'm going to just put that in parentheses, and then D plus O. D plus O. It's not a 0, that's an O. We're going to put some parentheses around that also. So in this particular one here, we're going to be solving for D. So we want to solve for D. But before we do that, we need to actually simplify this thing down. So we're going to collect all of our like terms, and our like terms are here. Right. Those are like terms, and what other? That's all we got for like terms. So we want to go ahead and simplify that. So we have 1D, 2Ds, 3Ds, and 4Ds. So we have 4D plus, and then we have this E here, so you can just drop the parentheses, plus I and plus O. Right, so we're solving for D. So I'm going to take this over to the left hand side, and by doing that I'm going to subtract E plus I plus O. Okay, so so these two guys here are going to cancel out to 0. Alright, so I went ahead and paused the video and rewrote it. So I subtracted, remember I didn't write it over here, but it should be written over here, the C plus I plus O over here on this side, okay, with a minus sign. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to multiply both sides by 1/4. And put a parentheses around the whole thing. So we'd have D is equal to 1/4, and as you can see what's in parentheses. Let me rewrite this. So this is D is equal to 1/4. We have G minus, and then E plus I plus O parentheses, right? So I'm closing this off, and then we're going to close the whole thing off. Right? All right. Let's look at another one here. So we have A. Whoops. A. Then I'm going to start a parentheses. U minus E. Close parentheses is equal to I minus M. And we're going to solve. We're going to solve for U. All right. We're going to do this just for U. Okay. This U is the same as that U. That looks like a capital U there, but they're actually the same. So we want to solve for U in this problem. Now what we're going to do here is I'm going to multiply this A across. So this becomes, we're going to distribute the A, so this is A times U minus A times E is equal to I minus M. Now remember, we're solving for U. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this guy over to the right hand side. And technically the way we're going to do that is I'm going to add A times E to both sides. I'm going to, let's see, I was going to put that in parentheses, but no, I think I'll keep it just like that. So plus A times E. So that's going to cause that to cancel out to 0, and so we're going to be left with A times U is equal to I minus M plus A times E. Alright, now what I want to do here, since we're solving for U, I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 over A. Right, that's going to get rid of this A here. Now I'm going to put a parentheses around everything here, and this becomes 1 over A. Oops, doesn't look like an A, but it is. So 1 over A times A is 1, so we're going to be left with U is equal to, and you know what, I'm going to take this 1 over A and bring it out here to the front. So this is 1 over A, and in parentheses I have an I minus an M plus A times E. And we're going to leave it just like that. Alright, let's look at another one here. N is equal to A H minus I plus N times H minus I. And in this particular case, we're going to solve for I. Alright, so we want to solve for I. We are going to solve for I in this problem. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to distribute the A across and then distribute the N across. So this becomes A times H minus A times I plus N times H minus N times I, and of course that's equal to N. Alright, I distributed the A, distributed the N. Now what we're going to do, since we're solving for I here, is I'm going to collect up, I'm going to regroup this stuff first of all, so maybe we can see a little better of what's going on here. A times H, I'm going to move this over, so plus n times h minus a times I minus n times I. Okay. Rewriting our n over here. I'm going to take, I guess I should have done this in the first place, but I'm going to subtract off the AH and subtract off the NH. So subtracting these guys off, I've kind of run out of room over here. I'm going to, I guess I'll just do this. So minus AH, and then minus the NH. But what we do to one side, we got to also do to the other. So I would also be subtracting off over here, which I have run out of room. Okay, I'll just do this. Move the screen over. So subtracting off the A times H and the NH. Ooh, run out of room. Alright. Okay, so as you can see here, that, let me use a different color. Right, so these guys here are going to all cancel out. Right. And now we're going to be left with, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. This is n, and I'm going to write minus AH minus NH, right, is equal to A times I, and I need to put the negative out in front, minus the n times I. Alright, so I hope you're following along with me here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to factor out this I. We are solving for I, and so what I'm going to need to do here is factor this I out. And the way this works is I'm going to pull the I out front. Okay? And you know what? I'm also going to factor out the minus sign, or the negative. And so I'm going to be left with A plus N. Alright, so if I were to look back at this, this is negative I times A is negative AI, and negative I times N is minus N times I. Right? And then of course we have, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite N minus AH minus NH. And now what I can do is I can multiply both sides by 1 over A plus N. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite all of this. So times 1 over A plus N. And then of course over here I'm going to write 1 over A plus N. And then in parentheses, N minus AH minus NH, and then close the parentheses. Now as we can see, these guys are going to cancel out, right, to 1, and we're going to end up being left with a negative I over here. Now, we're solving for I, not negative I, but that's okay. Now I'm going to rewrite this actually as N minus AH minus NH, and that's going to be all over A plus N. We have this negative I here, and I need to get rid of this negative. And by doing that, let me put a parentheses around it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1, because a negative I times negative 1 is just going to be I. And then I'm going to take this -1, of course. If I do what I on the right hand side, I got to also do over here on the left. So we don't want to forget that. Working with negatives can be tricky. Even if you've been working with negatives for a long time, it can still be tricky. So you got to be careful. So I can leave this negative out here in the front, or I can actually distribute the negative across inside up here in the top. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave the negative out front and then just rewrite n minus ah minus nh. If this were a negative out in front, this negative end, I would have probably just took this negative and distributed it across, but I didn't. A plus n is equal to, let's erase that. Alright, so we finally got what I is equal to. Let's work on another one. Alright, what else do I have here up my sleeve? What about, whoops. I have to cut everything that's off the screen, then I forget to hit my brushes when I'm done there. Alright, let's do this. M is equal to B times F minus I plus O. That looks like a 0, but it's an O. Don't let it confuse you. F minus I. And in this particular case, we're going to be solving for, F. Solve for F. So just like in the previous one, we're going to distribute the B across and then the O across. So we end up with BF for best friend minus BI, and I don't know, you can figure out what BI is for short for, O times F minus O times I. Alright. You might have heard my dog in the background there. He's a good guard doggy. Solve for F. What are we doing? I've forgot what I'm doing here. Okay. So I need to get this BI over here to the left side of the equal sign and this O times I over to the left hand side of the equal sign. And because we have a minus BI, I'm going to add a BI to this side, but we got to also add one to the other side over here. And oh, we need to add an OI also. And once again, I've run out of room. Plus OI. Right? So this way, this BI will be gone, and so will that. So that's good. But what we do to the right hand side, we got to do to the left hand side. So we added a BI and an OI as such. So when we write this over on the right hand side, we got to make sure we also write it over on the left hand side also. So now we're left with just the BF and the OF. Okay, so we have BF plus OF, and I'm going to write it like this. M plus BI plus